A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise Daily today. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Well, it's a beautiful Thursday morning from here in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm Kaido Kikilu.
Good morning from Abuja and the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Maokpe Ogun Yusuf.
You know, it's from the Federal Capital Territory we'll begin this morning, especially after that news broke about 5G deployment in Nigeria, or at least the approval, which of course will be followed by eventual deployment of 5G. Yet the spectrums have to be bought or rented, whatever term is used, and eventual deployment for Nigerians to enjoy. But first, Nigerians will clearly debate this one, because it's been a long time coming. Yes, there was some form of testing in 2019, but then 2020 came with COVID-19, and of course, it's no news the kind of conspiracy theories that followed the deployment of 5G across some other countries, how some people have related that to, COVID-19 and the rest. It was a big one then. It is funny how, people move on from things. It was very, very huge, so much so that I think Nigerian government actually stepped away from the deployment of 5G, thinking we don't want to be in the middle of this. There were a few statements here and there, but clearly it was not the right time to have discussions about 5G, because we were in the middle of a pandemic, smack in the middle of it, trying to grapple with what is responsible for COVID-19, what is the source of COVID-19. Some people were pointing to China, some pointed to 5G, so clearly it was not the right time to discuss 5G. And anyway, we needed to solve the pandemic on our hands first, right? So now it's post-COVID, some say still we're still in COVID, but for some, we've transitioned at least from that emergency phase, and it's sort of like a pre-COVID period. So now the federal government is actively considering, not just considering, has approved, that's the FEC has approved 5G in Nigeria. And as much as this is good news to some people, especially, the telecoms industry, people that understand the value of 5G, and the ramifications, the fact that you can be in faraway India, China, for example, and conduct a surgery in Nigeria, if, of course, you have the requisite equipment, because you have fast internet. So there's no lag, there's no buffer, which we have come to get used to with 3G and 4G. And that takes me to my own downside. As much as the conversation around 5G is a good one, really, following the trend across the world, what have we done with our 3G and 4G? A lot of people will be quick to tell you that we still have a lot of challenges with data deployment in Nigeria, internet deployment in Nigeria. I won't talk about the fiber optics and the fact that there's calls for some reduction in the right of way. But let me just talk about the simple 3G and 4G which we have. Some will tell you, well, do we really have 4G in Nigeria? It's 3.5G that has been upgraded, and somewhat your phone sees it as 4G. But the point is, the quality of internet deployment in Nigeria can do with a lot of improvement right now. And I think as much as the conversation around 5G is quite important, we should audit how much or how well we have performed with the 3G and 4G. How much do consumers have a say in the kind of service, the quality of service they get with 3G and 4G? I'm a regular data consumer, and I can tell you for free what I've had to go through. Yes, there have been improvements, but there are a lot of things about data consumption, how much value you get for the data you buy. Some tell you that within a week or a few days, I've exhausted my 1 month data. The service providers will tell you, well, your usage is huge, that's why you exhausted it. And some will tell you, well, I installed a data monitoring app on my phone, and it showed me how much I use, and I didn't use as much as that. So that conversation is still very much a big issue. So 5G is good, 3G and 4G needs a lot of work. Mark,
when you said 5G is good, it reminded me of that novel by, I'm trying to remember his name now, but Animal Farm, where you say two legs good, is it four legs good, two legs better? I'm trying to remember the name of the author, George Orwell. That's the name of the author of Animal Farm. Two legs good, or four legs good, two legs better. So 4G is good, 5G is better. Is that where we are at? I think that, Kayode, you've hit the nail on the head, because the question is, what does it really translate to for consumers? If you ask the average Nigerian, the chances that they have more than one network provider is very high. Most Nigerians own more than one SIM card. Now that we're in the age of data, many Nigerians don't depend on one source, one data provider for their data needs. They have a few of them, and the frustrations in recent times, especially since let's give it to the networks. They're trying. I mean, they're trying a great deal. Think about how we all got through in the pandemic. Someone like me, I was connecting a lot of the time via the internet. I had to work from home, and for lots of Nigerians who found themselves in that situation, they were still able to make some progress. With the data that was. No, they had to purchase the data, of course. But of course, it was available. At least it was available to purchase. And in many instances, it did work. But as you have pointed out, is there room for improvement? The thing is, there is plenty of room for improvement. And I think that, this will also go to the regulators in terms of, what new measures would they be putting in place to ensure that consumers are not, cheated, that consumers get the best deal out of what is being provided, that service providers are not forming themselves into a cartel instead of, being competitive amongst themselves and giving consumers the best deal, but that, they just find a way to unite and ensure that, data or prices do not go below a certain level. I hope that we're not getting there. I'm hoping that competition will continue to be at least healthy competition will continue to be the guiding rules of this. But you're right about the controversy that, trailed the deployment of 5G, especially when you look at the fact that, on the wake of the deployment or in the wake of the deployment of 5G in some countries was when the coronavirus was recorded. And then, they began to make linkages which seem surreal. In Nigeria, there was an investigation which was ordered by the Senate sometime in May. The question is, what came out of that particular investigation? Well, I think they said there is no connection between 5G and the coronavirus. And I think we all can go with that. So where will it be deployed first? We also know that the federal government has been doing some tests. They have had a test deployment of 5G. What did they find? It'll be very interesting to know some of the findings from the deployment of 5G. In terms of calling for an audit of how we have fared with the deployment of 2G, 3G, and 4G, I'm with you on that. I believe that if you know where you're coming from and the mistakes that you have made, you will be better equipped to avoid them moving forward. We're definitely in for interesting times, gentlemen, with all that is happening around us and the controversy around electronic transmission. Let's not forget that, which is extremely important. Some people claim that, oh, look, there is even no 2G in my place. It's very difficult to send anything. Yet, in some places where 5G is about to be deployed, they too voted against electronic transmission. So while we know that we've made tremendous progress with technology in many areas, fintechs have grown, banks are doing tremendously well. I mean, look at the massive profits they're declaring, and businesses have been able to leverage on that to even further expand their businesses and not be held down by territory. Let us also hope that this will reflect in how we conduct the politics of our country, how we conduct governance. In recent times, we've been saying FEC, doing a lot of virtual meetings. Even the one of yesterday was done, virtually. Let us also hope that this will translate into, our electoral process for good, and that in the places where we can deploy technology to improve governance, to improve the people's participation in our democracy, let us hope that we wouldn't shy away from it. Gentlemen.
Some policy just seems to keep playing back in my head. For instance, if you look at our elections, they'll tell you, well, even if there are little cases of rigging or malpractices here and there, the law says, was there substantial compliance? So if they establish substantial compliance, then you're good to go. Then you come to the health sector, they talk about the vaccines. Are there complications with some of those who have taken it? Yeah, and then they tell you, but look at the percentage of those who have those complications compared to those who seem to have moved. But then you move ahead with that one. So who knows? It just might as well apply to this one. Yes, they conducted that 3-month tests of this 5G technology, I think sometime in November 2019. So whatever it is that they found, the fact that they've given a nod to this 5G national policy tends to show that, well, largely, they think it's okay. So perhaps whether 2G, 3G, 3.5, 4, however they fare, they think, look, this is the way to go. And they just have to go on board. You know, so I guess we'll see, because, I mean, some of those challenges which were raised even as soon as yesterday about the right of way, the state access to that kind of infrastructure to ensure that that development spreads faster than just a few places. Who knows? Well, I guess it's something that'll just keep going on. But yeah, so there you go. That is it. By all means, you can just weigh in. Yeah, but we'll just have to go ahead, and maybe you might have heard, or you get an opportunity to hear what was said about that much later, because we'll just go ahead and take a look at what the dailies are reflecting, so that while that goes on, yeah, give us your thought, whatever you think about it. So we'll start with Vanguard newspaper this morning. FIRS, Rivers, Lagos lock horns over VAT. Gombe begs. Yeah, wow, you wonder how it comes out that way. Law backs us. State can't collect VAT. FIRS insists. Well, you say law backs us. I'm wondering, what are we missing?
Well, from the little I heard, maybe I missed it. I think the statement or the message that was being passed across by the FIRS is, well, it will not entirely be right, or it will not work to have states collect it. I didn't quite get the sense that the FIRS was saying, as it stands now,
yeah,
there's a law backing us to. But I think it was just, well, this is we feel it's the right thing to do based on these reasons, but I didn't hear law.
Because part of what, if I read them right too, they alluded to if you, maybe in other climes, it's nationally collected, and then if you collect one in this state, you move to another state, and which the lawyer spoke to yesterday.
They dealt with that extensively.
Yeah, but I don't know, he says the law backs us, because they didn't talk about the law in that case, because if they're going to appeal the matter, I think only the courts can, of course, you expect them to beat their chest about all of that. But look at the other rider. Gombe begs southern states to be brother's keeper in push for VAT collection. Wike threatens to take over FIRS offices in Rivers. Says, Rivers money, not for Abuja people. Lagos generates over 500 billion naira VAT annually. Speaker vows to enforce Rivers judgment in Lagos. Face-off unhealthy for business, underscores need for fiscal federalism. OPS, other stakeholders react. So it will be huge.
I hear just Lagos and Rivers really saying things or doing things about this. What about the other 34 states?
Well, I don't think it's a sit-down-look approach. Maybe they're waiting to see if the matter is going to go the whole hog to the Supreme Court. At the end of the day, then they can take the steps, because maybe they may feel, look, we don't know how this is going to go. So if at the end of the day we set up something, then it doesn't work. So,
or does it mean those states don't think this will work for them eventually?
You never know. So we'll wait and see. And then at the bottom strip, open grazing. Southern governors battle Mieti Allah, say no cultural practice permits banditry, rape, kidnapping. So that you also see at the bottom. So don't forget to check out Vanguard back page. FIFA cancels Musa's Centurion, insists on 98. NFF succumbs. Musa keeps 10 million naira reward. So in case you're wondering, what is this all about? Yeah, just go ahead and see that one. That is Vanguard this morning.
Well, the Nigerian Tribune does an extensive coverage of this VAT debate, as it were. So let me just dive right into it. On the front page of the paper, you see Rivers got 4.7 billion naira of 15 billion naira VAT. Kano received same 2.8 billion naira generated. Wike reveals, laments injustice. Page 4. But then right under that, you see some boxes that contain some sides to the story. Wike's VAT battle puts Nigeria's federalism on trial. Experts, lawyers speak. State's VAT management will cause confusion. FIRS. Tax reform. FIRS writes NAS wants Federal Revenue Court to exclusively handle VAT matters. And you see this one from a Lagos speaker. Why VAT law will be beneficial to Lagos. Page 4 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. It's a big one, definitely. And some are saying this will be a major turning point for the nation. You didn't see this coming, but there you have it. At the bottom strip, Zamfara government intercepts food, fuel supply to bandits, arrests 100 suspects. That's concerning the fight against banditry. And we hear about a lot of successes made in that theater. And once again, and I think we can never say this enough, is thank you to our armed forces. On top of the nameplate, you see thieves snatched Igbo's aide's case file. DSS tells court, slams terrorism charges against them. And I got quite a number of people talking. And let me just take one more for you. Former governors may produce next PDP national chairman. Page 25. We'll definitely be giving you insights into that one on the program this morning. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
Daily Trust this morning, and they have this one for you. 30 states risk bankruptcy as Lagos Rivers set for new VAT regime. Yeah, that's it, VAT regime. Poor states must work hard to survive. That's according to experts. Companies will pay, I want to believe this is net tax to us, what I say, or maybe that's actually what it means. Companies will pay next tax to us. I don't know what that means, but it's attributed to the governor of Rivers State, Wike. Look at the infographic they have on the front page for you to give you, to help you make sense of it. Sharing formula from VAT pool, local governments 35%, federal government 15%, state 50%, and then they also add here net of 4% cost of the collection by the FIRS. 20% of the pool is shared based on derivation, so that is also there as well. And then you have a number of other breakdowns for you. Some of the states with poor IGR of less than 10% is at the bottom there. Lagos and Rivers contribute over 70% of the VAT collectibles in the country. These are some of the facts they have put into infographics for you on the front page of Daily Trust newspapers. Take a look at this. Gunmen burn policemen inside patrol van in Delta. You know, when we see violence against the police is totally unacceptable, because regardless of how imperfect our policemen are, you know, they're still our own policemen, and without them it will be really unsafe to go out. So this sort of violence really needs to be condemned on every front, and those who have perpetrated this sort of violence really need to be brought to book. It's a page 38 read. Gunmen burn policemen inside patrol van in Delta State. This is a really distressing story to read. You have a number of other stories at the bottom there, and some at the top. Issues before the new Greek minister. So they've set an agenda for him. FEC OK's use of 5G network. We already brought that to you. And for those planning to travel to Dubai or the UAE, look at that. UAE flight ban. Nigerians explore alternatives. Airlines, others count losses. So for those who are affected by this, you may want to read details on page 21. Let's leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
All right, take a look at New Telegraph next. They follow up on what we highlighted in the opening sequence here today. It's about the 5G network, the New Telegraph reports here today. So you can see that Nigeria joins 5G network as FEC OK's policy. So that is what you see right there. Approves 1.62 billion naira for Nasarawa water scheme power sector. So that's you also see that. But look at this at the bottom strip. Sounds a bit comical though. DSS tells court, one chance thieves snatched Igboho's aide's case file from us. Wow. I thought they were just regular people like us that, those one chance can chance.
I mean, I think it was a lawyer, DSS lawyer.
Yeah, but they said DSS tells court.
So imagine the lawyer of the DSS also going in, a convoy of security operatives, armed to the teeth, with the latest arms and ammunition.
And then files terrorism charge, that's what they were there, against 2 of secessionist leaders' aides. Wow. They equally do have a perspective on VAT crisis deepens as FIRS insists on collection. Tax is for federation, not federal government, FIRS says right there.
Okay. Interesting perspective there. But take a look at the Guardian newspaper. I mean, this VAT conversation is not going anywhere soon. Clearly, manufacturers deplore stalemate as FIRS rivers insist on VAT collection. So there you go again. And like we've said time and again, put ourselves in the shoes of businesses. But for Rivers State, it appears the governor is saying, well, this is the way forward, okay? And that's it. But take a look at the riders. We have backing of VAT Act, says FIRS. I thought the lawyer says there's nothing like a VAT Act anymore. More riders. Rivers meets business community, begins implementation. Bickering as Lagos proposes 6% VAT, 75% for state councils, 25%. What about FG?
25%?
75% for state, 25% for councils.
Oh.
Okay, so 0% for FG.
That's assuming they now be the ones to collect it fully, right? Because the speaker is saying we will enforce this.
Yeah. Wow. Bickering as Lagos proposes, okay, I said that already. Manufacturers worry about AMPAS despite 44.9 billion naira remittance. Wow, in H1. Still on the front page, you see this one. What Ndibo would tell Buhari in Owerri today by Ohaneze, Masob Igbo leaders. Yes, the president is expected to visit. But the writer says, no big deal. Buhari visited Imo 3 times under my watch, says Okorocha. That's shots fired. Huriwa reacts as government reopens banks after shutdown over Monday's sit at home. There you go with the Guardian.
Well, let's look at what the Daily Times has for you this morning. They have the story which made me chuckle when I saw it yesterday. But look at this one. Security agencies requested for telecom shutdown in Zamfara. That's according to the federal government. Yes, that also came with the briefing which the Minister for Communications and Digital Economy gave yesterday. Says economic gains sacrificed to restore security benefits. FEC okays national policies on 5G nutrition. That came out of the FEC meeting yesterday. And look at this one. Reps to Auditor General of the Federation. You're guilty of reckless spending. Uncovers 1.9 million naira spent on empty clinic. Yesterday was a day of drama, auditing the Auditor General. I mean, I don't know, really. This country, really, when you fight corruption, corruption does fight back. You find details on page 2 of the paper. And, of course, they have a throwback for you. 100,000 teachers are angry. And they have an editorial that need to give teachers better rewards, recognitions. Let's leave it there for the Daily Times.
I don't understand National Assembly. The Auditor General's office has published several documents as to MDAs that defaulted. I don't see this same venom. Okay, maybe a little bit in the Senate, but House of Reps. Look at News Direct. Let's end with that one here today. It's on the VAT tussle. FIRS writes National Assembly. Well, you need to find out, is it previous communication or recent communication? And then you see the writer here, demands exclusive collection of VATs, approval of Federal Revenue Court. Oh. This opens up new vista into the entire. Gives it a different coloration, but just put it in context and see. Okay, so if they are, why will they? So many questions, I tell you. But that is it. We'll look at some of the dailies here this morning. We will be back in a moment. Don't go away.
there is victory for all.
The two ministers of Labour are leading other government delegations at this emergency meeting with the leadership of the Joint Health Sector Union, JOHISU, to prevent an impending strike by the health workers.
For our members, there is victory.
The meeting is convened after JOHISU leadership sent a notice of strike to the federal government owing to what it describes as the government's inability to honour an agreement it entered into with the union. JOHISU members are asking the federal government to, among other matters, address the issues of consolidated health salary structure, increase retirement age for health workers, as well as pay withheld salaries of members in Lagos University Teaching Hospital, Jos University Teaching Hospital, and Federal Medical Center, Owerri. The Minister of Labour and Employment is, however, unhappy with the latest threat, insisting that the government is not owing salary of any legitimate health worker.
Nobody is owed monthly salary. Nobody is owed monthly salary. For example, the doctors say that their members are owed monthly salaries, this and those owed monthly salaries among the doctors are those who were illegally recruited. Illegally recruited. Those people who even did illegal recruitment should be punished severely.
But members of the Joint Health Sector Union differ, insisting that the government has continued to renege on the agreements.
Many of the issues have lingered, some from 2014. And then the most vexing ones, like we had 16 issues that we entered into agreement 30th September 2017. And we thought within this period, at least even the 5 issues, even if not all the 16, would have been dealt with. But as we speak, none, not even one, has been dealt with.
Meanwhile, some members of the government delegation appealed to the health workers to shelve the planned strike. Nigeria's health sector is currently in one of its worst situations, with resident doctors on strike for over a month, paralyzing services in government-owned hospitals across the country.
Well, that report provides a background to the discussion which we're about to enter now, and we've been joined by Dr. Obinna, who is the National Vice Chairman of the Joint Health Sector Workers Union. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm sure a lot of Nigerians were concerned when they saw that meeting you had with the Minister of Labour. I don't know if the Ministry of Health was represented there, but very conspicuously, we saw both ministers of Labour, Minister of Labour and the Minister of State for Labour. It means that, at least that's what one can read from it, that they have taken your threat for strike pretty seriously, and it would seem that negotiations are already underway. We understand that you met from that night, from 9th of the 7th into the following morning. Were you able to make any headway? Let me put it that way.
Well, thank you very much for having me once again. The essence of strike, or the essence of giving ultimatum, is to call the attention of the government to a prevailing strike situation. And that we have done. And before now, we've had several ultimatums served the government. And at the wee hours of the expiration of the ultimatum, you now see the government inviting us. This one was even very fast. They did well this time around to call us for dialogue. But the problem with all of this unending dialogue is that after you have reached a compromise, after you have distilled the discussion into MOA, that is a Memorandum of Action or Agreement, you still find out that the willpower to implement those agreements are not there. For instance, on the 30th of September 2017, we had a 16-point demand that agreements were reached on. And some of those issues had timeline. Some of them were supposed to have been executed and implemented within 5 weeks, some 2 weeks. that was the catalogue of how it should go. And but to our surprise, after those timeline, the government had not done anything about these issues. And in 2018, we waited for about 1 year. Nothing had been done. 2018, we had to begin another strike in the month of April. And from April to May, nothing tangible was done. Instead, we were visited by the no work, no pay rule, and we were taken to court. And the judge at the National Industrial Court of Nigeria ordered us to go to the this alternative dispute resolution arm of the court. We were supposed to work there for about 5-6 weeks, but at the end of the day, we spent 6 months, and eventually on the 29th of March 2019, there was this consent judgment that was rolled out by the ADR. From then till now, none of those consent judgment agreements had been implemented. Now we are in 2020, the COVID issue came up, so everybody remained calm. And around that 2020, around September 13th, we also served the government another ultimatum, which expired, and we had to go for a 7-day warning strike. The government did not even bother to invite us for any dialogue, for any talk, for any update on what they are doing to arrest the situation. It was on the 21st of July, 2021, this year, that the Federal Ministry of Health, after our communique was sent to them, and we also reiterated that the way we are being treated is not fair. That was when the Director of Hospital Services invited us to a meeting. And it was the same old story that be patient, we are working, and we cannot see any visible reaction. I'm a scientist. There are sometimes reactions may be going on. You may not see any visible result or reaction then. It's not that actions are not going on, but at the end of the day, it will be very visible that something has taken place. But this one, we have not seen anything tangible. The rate of entropy is high. There is now entropy, and the entropy is bringing forth an exothermic reaction, which is very hot.
These are scientific terms.
Yes, that's entropy. That's the rate of disorderliness. That is what's happening in the health sector. The entropy is there. That is change in heat. And the exothermic reaction is what is happening now. The heat is palpable. And there are lots of crises because the government should be held responsible for reneging on their CBA. Nobody, they didn't enter this CBA or this MOU under duress. They were the one who put forth the timeline, the various timelines. And we have been telling Nigerians that we are not strike mongers. One of the problems we have in the health sector is underfunding. Just imagine, the highest budgetary allocation for health in Nigeria so far is about 6.12% in 2012. In 2019, it was about 4.14%. Same for last year. This year, even with the advent of COVID, is just about 4.45%, as against the AU benchmark of 15%. Go to South Africa, just behind us here. Their budgetary provision is about 12.5%. This 4.4% that is rolled out of the entire budgetary provision of about 30 trillion just is a reflection of 547 billion. And when you now divide it by 200 million, it translates to about 247 naira per month for an average Nigerian to seek health.
Now, you've heard that, you've had the Minister of Labour counter that to say that, look, every time people talk about budgetary allocations to health, they're always looking strictly at health. they don't look at other areas that are closely related to health. So for instance, he thinks that when water is provided under the Ministry of Water Resources, that's potable water and a few other things, when health is captured under education, these are all ancillary budgetary allocations to the health sector as well, and we need to take cognizance of that.
Then you should ask yourself, what is the end result? Maternal mortality in Nigeria, where the Nigerian record is about 20% of the global maternal mortality in the world. So nobody should fool anybody. We have indicators that should portray, even if there is holistic budgetary arrangement and wherever. But what we are saying is that Nigerians are impoverished. And, for example, when you go to the pharmacy shop, you just want, malaria is the most common illness here. How much do they sell a packet of anti-malaria drug? Your 247 naira cannot afford a good malaria drug. And that is the reason why we say, even in the health sector, we have infrastructural decay, obsolete equipment, and at the end of the day, even the National Health Insurance Scheme that the government has rolled out is not working, because when you go to the pharmacy drug department, you always have this OS syndrome, that is out of stock syndrome. Some of the basic drugs are not there. Consumables are not there. Then what are we saying? That's why the labor unions in the health sector will continue to cry that the Nigerian government should be sensitive to the funding of the health sector, so that an average Nigerian will have access to health, accessibility, affordability, and availability of health. It's a social service that the government owes Nigerians.
Tell us some of the agreements which you have, which were reneged upon, which you reached at the ARD, Alternative Dispute Resolution Mechanism System, and which the chairman of your union, stated very clearly that not one of the 15, he said even the 5 points, not one of them has been implemented. Can you shed some light on that?
Like we've been saying, the first among the lists is the adjustment of cohesion salary, because we are the caregiver. If the caregiver is not cared for, how do you expect him or her to give effective healthcare service to the teeming masses? So in 2014, we pointed out that the cohesion and commerce salary spanned from 2009 agreement, and it was stated copiously there that whenever one of the salary structures is adjusted, same should be done for the other. In our CBA of 2014, it was also found there. By the time we presented this to the minister, he had none of this information before now. We showed him the document. And at the
Which one of the ministers?
The Minister of Labour, really, because he was the chief conciliator. And he had this, and well, anyway, we also presented that, look, the matter that you thought is still in court over this adjustment of cohesion has been taken out of court, because there was one NGO, Kingdom Treasure or whatever, that took Joyesu to court in 2018 during the episode of the strike. But finally, the National Industrial Court has ruled that Functo's official has been entered. That is, the judge has washed his hand and has dismissed that matter, that we should go back to our parent ministry, go back and start renegotiation, right? But before then, already we were told that the high power committee had worked on the matter, and we were told that we were supposed to 22.6 billion was earmarked for the payment of that adjusted cohesion. And before you know it, it dragged and nothing had been done about it. Then, too, we had been saying that the payment of our April and May salary that was illegally withheld in 2018 should be released. Now we also had noticed during the episode of this COVID-19 pandemic, we were the front healthcare workers who combated or still combating the COVID-19. There was a special COVID hazard allowance that was released. 50% of our basic salary was to be paid. But erroneously or intentionally, like we will say, some of our members were only paid 10%. We said the government should go and balance the remaining 40%. Up to now, it has not been done. And then we also noticed that most of the ADR, consent judgment, and other judgments that had been given in favor of our union had not been implemented. More importantly, the skipping, promotion arrears, and all other salaries that are supposed to be paid to our members have not been done. We just had at the last meeting that the fifth one, the retirement review of retirement age from 60 to 65 for workers, and for consultants in the field, 70 will just go to National Council of Establishment. You see, so none of these things, no categorical or concrete agreement or, implementation of any.
A lot of them, and one cannot say that you don't deserve your wages, but a lot of them seem to border on the welfare of your workers.
Yeah, like I told you, if the welfare of the care provider is not taken care of, how will you expect an efficient service delivery? Then too, I also mentioned here that we have been crying about infrastructural decay before now. It was the episode of COVID-19 pandemic that exposed the whole cry, because some of our political office holders could not jet out of the country again because of the lockdown. So they were able to see and understand all the noise we were making before now. So our cries have been justified by the present scenario playing out. You may ask, before now, how many molecular laboratories do we have in Nigeria? We had only 3. It was only 1 that was functioning then. But now, because of the COVID-19, we are having about 40 now, which is a good one. Then you ask yourself,
are we capturing this under those are some of the extraneous spending that have come outside of the budget for health? Well,
again, you also know that during this pandemic period, we had external funding from outside to support us, palliatives and all that. So you cannot categorically point that it's from the 4.45% budgetary allocation for health.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make, that oftentimes when we talk about how much has been spent in the health sector, we only look stricto sensu at how much has been allocated to the budget for health. We forget that sometimes we are also supported by donor agencies, and we don't seem to capture that under our budget for health. Isn't that correct?
Well, you must have something on paper. How are you sure that you will receive support? You are supposed to plan for your country, not hinging on maybe support that will come outside. You don't put that. When you are doing budgetary provision, you strictly go by what you put down. If others come from outside, you don't now add it to your budgetary provision. That will be a plus if it does come. So,
So I'm looking again at some of the things that you demanded. The 5 points which you are asking for: payment of reviewed hazard allowance is also something that the doctors have asked for. The increase of retirement age from 60 to 65 for consultant health professionals. You want a review of how government is implementing COVID-19 special inducement and hazard allowance. They're very, very related, aren't they?
Yeah, they are related.
But they're not the same thing.
They're not the same thing, because that inducement hazard allowance was given to us during the episode or the upsurge of the COVID-19 pandemic. But this one we are referring to now is the one that will be constant. We are being paid 5,000 naira as hazard allowance before the government, in their magnanimity, quoted, decided to now increase it from 5,000 naira to a new rate, which is still under negotiation. Okay, so that's why we said there should be an upward review, and it should be implemented on time.
Talk to us about this one. Payment of salaries that has been owed members of staff of Federal Medical Center, Owerri, Jos Teaching Hospital and Lagos Teaching Hospital. Because we heard there the minister talking about how no member of staff is owed salaries. Maybe he was saying it in reference to the doctors, that the people who are owed salaries are the illegals. Do you want to talk to us about it?
It's not the same. You know, when, for example, the FMC Owerri issue was a topical issue then, the Nigerian government had encouraged every one of us to be a whistleblower, especially when you see any corruptive tendency in your system. Yes, the FMC Owerri people, workers there, the health workers there, we are spotted some corruption in the system, and the whistle was blown that there is this so many shady things happening. The minister sent some committee members. I was a member of that committee. We went to FMC Owerri because the members of staff withdrew services as a result of the management there trying to oppress them for speaking out. So some of them were denied their promotion, their salaries were withheld. That when we went into the matter, we discovered that they were right. An investigative panel was set up. Some of the equipment, buildings that were supposed to rise before that time, the contract has been paid and everything. The contractor has received its money, but no building standing there. It was when we got there that they started clearing the bush and started putting stones and whatever there. So we now said these people, salary should be paid. They made a good, the useful information to the government. But why should you now deny them of their salaries because they started strike there? It's unjustifiable. So pay them their salaries. That's why we put FMC Owerri there. The Jute also had similar issue because they went on legal strike, pointing to the decay in the system. Their salaries were withheld. So we should now start to reverse the narrative. When government fails in her own responsibilities in meeting the needs of the workers, what should be their penalty? Why should they use the no work, no pay as a tool to cage and to cow the workers? It's also there in that Labor Dispute Act, T8, Section 43. That's where the no work, no pay is. But Section 41 talks about strike. Essential service providers can go on strike in as much as they've given 15 days ultimatum to their management or to their employer. So this is what is happening. So that money should be given back to the people because they did the right thing by calling the attention of the government.
This is not a case of people who were hired illegally.
No, it is not.
Are you in solidarity with NARD over their demands?
Well, an injury to one is an injury to all. There are some areas of common interests. Okay? We don't have permanent enemies or permanent friends in unionism. It is a game of common interests. If we have areas of common interest, why not? We shall solidarize with them. Why we expect them also to solidarize with us? This beauty contest in the health sector rivalry shouldn't be, because each person has his or our own line of duty. So if we are to work like team players, we are supposed to protect the interests of others in that team.
Let's quickly flip this to Lagos now, to my colleague Coyote.
Oh, thank you, Markwe. That question from Markwe is quite interesting because looking at the communique that you released prior to the meeting you had with the government, you referenced physicians, doctors a lot in that communique, spoke about even getting them to be bonded, as it were, when government pays for their residency training. You talked about there being some level playing field. So I imagine that when you say to some extent you agree in these other areas which you put in that communique, you clearly do not agree with the resident doctors. So that aside, I'd like to ask you, how much of a threat, or is there still a threat of a strike as it is today, right after that meeting you had with the government? Should we be worried that you'll still go on strike? Is it in how many days now? 13, 12 days?
Yeah, well, the ultimatum is counting. It's about 10 days more for it to expire. We are really serious about this matter because this time around, the demand for the strike action is coming from the members. They feel frustrated over the years for the government to not have met simple demands that the government entered into with the unions. So it's very disheartening. And that's why the issue of brain drain is common to everyone. Many of our professional colleagues are leaving the country because they are well trained, but they do not have the enabling environment to discharge their duties. No, the equipment we have now, they are very obsolete. It was during the era of President Olusegun Obasanjo that we had the VAMED equipment in about 12 to 14 hospitals in Nigeria. Many of those equipment now are obsolete. How many of these magnetic resonance imaging machines do we have now? How many of these accelerator machines or linear accelerator machines do we have? How many of these cancer treatment machines do we have in Nigeria? So we keep counting all of these. So when you are well trained and you do not have the facilities to work, we only train our personnel for other countries to harness, to take them away. Okay, and we are short-staffed. We are not, the healthcare professionals are not adequate in the country. So it calls for concern. And that's why the managerial skill in the health sector should be looked into. There should be a total overhaul of the administrative prowess. Let us put the right people there, administrators who are trained to manage resources and humans. Then those of us who are healthcare professionals, all of us should go back to our clinical area of interest. Leave the administrative area for administrators, health administrators, or other CEOs to take charge of.
I mean, Dr. Obina, so I believe these are parts of the conversations we've been having with government. I want to believe that. But I'm clearly asking, I mean, right after the meeting you had with Labour and other government representatives, I want to know if anything has changed. So, by the way, we did invite the Ministry of Labour also to get a sense of the thinking of government regarding that. But clearly, they didn't show up. But we do hope that in the coming days, we'll get them. But I would like you to tell Nigerians, after that meeting, that intervention, or whatever it might be called, has anything changed regarding the strike?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
The question is, right after that meeting you had with federal government representatives, with Labour, we saw the budget office as well as others, has anything changed regarding your strike? You said that you were going to get back to your members with the understandings that were reached. Did anything come out of that such that Nigerians can say, well, Joesu is no more going on strike, or Joesu will still go on strike?
Well, as it stands now, nothing concrete or tangible had been agreed upon. That's why we are going to have another meeting on the 14th of this month. That is next week, Tuesday. Probably when the cards are laid on the table, we'll be able to see which one the government will be serious about in implementing. Then we'll resort back to our members to now, because at that day it will be about 4 days to the end of to the expiration of the 15 days ultimatum. So it's a serious matter.
Right. Did you sign any memorandum?
This is not the right time for strike, really,
right?
Because of the pandemic. Yes.
Okay. Did you sign any memorandum of understanding, any memorandum of agreement? Did you put pen to paper in any way at the end of that meeting or even during that meeting?
No, what will you sign? We have, there was no agreement on any of the issue yet. So how will you now sign? So I read in some publications that there was a truce. What's the meaning of truce? There were resolutions. We never agreed. The only thing that happened during that meeting is that we had an ambient environment. Everybody was calm to listen to one another, and labor dialogues have changed from banging the table to scientific presentations with facts and figures. That was what we did that day, and we were getting to understand ourselves that this strike is germane, it is legal, and the issues under reference are real, and the government is seeing it in that light, that there is need for government to do the needful at this period. If not, the ultimatum is still counting, and if it expires, then we'll be left with nothing than to go back to the trenches. And whatever the members resolve to do, we are going to provide leadership because it is their call and their strike.
So when the Minister of Labour was quoted as saying the issue was resolved to the satisfaction of all of us, the government is not delaying the hazard allowance as some people want the public to believe, essentially saying that, well, there's been some sort of resolution. From your own side, clearly you don't think there's been a resolution.
Like I told you, the only resolution we had that day was a peaceful, ambient atmosphere to discuss the matters unfiltered.
So, I mean, resolution, the issues have been resolved means only one thing. The issues have been resolved. But clearly, resolution for you means something entirely different from resolution for the government. And I think that's a major challenge for us to grapple with. But when you say that the strike is still on, as it were, help Nigerians understand who will be participating in that strike. So you have nurses. Just what will happen to the health sector if Johesu succeeds in going on this strike?
Yeah, well, the strike is not on yet. We are just showing our intention to go on strike if the government do not meet our demands within the stipulated time. The expiration date will be midnight of 17th September 2021. Now, Johesu is made up of 5 unions in the health sector: the National Association of Nigerian Nurses, the Medical and Health Workers Union of Nigeria, the Nigerian Union of Allied Health Professionals, the Non-Academic Staff Union, and the Senior Staff Association of Universities and Tertiary Health Institutions and Research Institutes, SATURI. All of us make up about 95% of the workforce in the health sector. So if the medical practitioners, especially the NAD, are on strike now, and the other 95% joins them, that is the Johesu families joins the strike, I mean, my answer is as real as what you give. That means there will be total shutdown of the health system in the country. And I mean, it's the poor masses that will now bear the brunt because of the already impoverished nature and economic stress on them. Like I painted it, 247 naira per month is the budgetary provision for them. It's not a good omen. So we just want to plead to Nigerians to understand with us that our demands are also indirectly going to affect them positively if met. So they should bear with us. And well-meaning Nigerians, the Governor Forum, the SGF, and other government functionaries should prevail in this matter and see a way of resolving it before it gets out of hand. We want to plead.
I wonder how easy it would be really to get people that have clear medical emergencies to bear with you and the government through this all. I understand you have to say this, but I'm just trying to receive that as someone who needs to see, a doctor, a physician, or at least to be attended to by a nurse. I wonder how that will be received. And I'd like to go back to something, Mark, where touched on earlier, and it talks about the working together of the health sector in general, the professionals in the health sector. You just said 95% of the 100% in the health sector is made up of JOHESU workers. Clearly, you are referencing a whole, essentially saying that you're meant to work together as a team, as a whole. And I see in that communique, you said that, well, you need some level playing field. In fact, you went on to say that physicians still enjoy the best working conditions. And even the physicians, I mean, they're on strike right now because they think they're not enjoying the best working conditions. So how can that be remedied, really?
We want the government to start taking every healthcare professional serious. And that's what we call job evaluation. Each person and each profession, we all have our line of duties. And no one is superior to the other. Government should not show overture and show favoritism to a particular group in the health system or health team to the advantage of the other group. Why we mentioned that in our communique was that we see a lot of disunity in our midst, discrimination as a result of the government's attitude. Like we have said in the past, that other healthcare professionals, we need residency training. Let it be instilled in the workings of the government policy. We use our own money to train ourselves in our postgraduate studies in order to bring effective healthcare services to the masses. We have been saying it times without number. International best practices also put up residency programs for other healthcare professionals. In Canada, in UK, in Australia, you have that for pharmacists, for physiotherapists, radiographers, optometrists, and others in the health system. But here in Nigeria, we seem to neglect other healthcare professionals, and continue to promote the other medical practitioners alone. That's why we mentioned it in our communique, to draw the attention of the government to the fact that as team players, all of us should be given equal playing ground so that we can increase and improve our skills, and so that it will be brought down to the poor masses. It is a multidisciplinary approach that we look at. The patient is at the center. Every one of us revolve around them, and we should give the best to our patients, to the masses, to Nigerians. So postgraduate trainings should not just be meant for, the sponsorship of postgraduate training, either partly or fully, should not be enjoyed by the medical practitioners alone. That was why we pointed that aspect out, that, look, we still see that they enjoy more favor than other healthcare professionals in the system. So that's one of the things we want government to look at. Let there be a holistic approach. No favorite child. All of us should be seen and be looked at the point of need. Whatever we bring to the government, have some international best practices underneath. We do not cry for what we do not require. So government should take us serious in that direction.
But, brain drain continues to be a source of concern to not just, I'm sure government must be concerned. I want to imagine that they are concerned. But a lot of Nigerians are truly concerned about what is happening, with regards to brain drain, especially when you look at the recruitment. That it's not like as if our doctors are or even our health workers are going to go and look for these jobs. The jobs are coming to look for them. Sure. Have you had any conversation amongst your members as to, what can be done to stem the tide of brain drain in Nigeria today, especially in the medical sector? It's everyday dialogue and discussion. I've told you one of the points. When you do not have an enabling environment to discharge your duty,
You have been well trained, but you don't have the equipment to practice. Every now and then, there are frustrations setting in. Your welfare is not taken care of. And you know you have the skill. You have the competence. I mean, it's easy for one to now jet out.
I want to ask you, what has been the motivation of people like you who've stayed back?
Well, one of the major motivating factors, one is we have looked at it that if all of us jet out now, those of us who are activists, who need to cry out and call the attention of government to some of these things, if some of us also leave, who is going to bail the cat? For now, we are still here, given the opportunity to say it the way it is. But if the opportunity comes, why not?
You mean you will leave as well?
Andrew will check out. That is it. Because every blessed day that you go into the work environment, you are received with frustration. Even your remuneration, when you compare with what you are paid, with what you get outside, you see it as peanuts. But that notwithstanding, the joy of contributing to the well-being of your fellow man is the motivating factor that you are impacting. You are adding value to the life of someone who is about to die or who is ill. That's an encouraging factor. Most of the time, it's not even the remuneration you get. So fulfillment comes from having equipment to work, and you see that this patient is recuperating. You see that this patient is getting well. That's a motivating factor. But if you want to scale it down, you have families. You can see the rate of unemployment. You who is working, you have about 10 dependents. I mean, how much you take home? It's not just for your immediate family. You have to give some to your extended family members, your friends, and before you know it, you also get frustrated and you start to nurse some hypertension, thinking of how you're going to survive as well. So, especially now that we even have security situations revolving around us, the medical professionals are even targets, because they believe in the society that they are well paid, and before you know, they may be target of kidnap. And when that happens, who will pay you? What will you? There are so many healthcare professionals that have been kidnapped in the past, okay, and they have to pay heavily for their ransom. Okay, so with all this stress, both in the general environment and the hospital environment, I mean, that frustration is setting in, and many people want to jet out if they have the opportunity. But government can stem the tide. If some of these things we have requested now is looked into and done immediately, well, people will be encouraged. The joy will come back. People will be happy going to their places of work, and they want to put in their best.
Well, let us hope, indeed, because hope is the only thing we can hang on to. That the pace with which they have used to answer the ultimatum which you've given, and the fact that conversations have started, will eventually yield good fruit. We have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Dr. Ogbonna Obinna is the National Vice Chairman of the Joint Health Sector Workers Union. Thank you once again for coming on Sunrise Daily.
Thank you for that prophetic utterance. I will go by that. And we believe that the government will do the needful. Thank you very much.
We'll take a break at this point. We'll be back shortly, and we'll have politics on the table. Please stay with us.
You must have seen that we received leaders of our party in various other states where we don't have governors. We have had a very robust engagement with them, where we discussed how to move the party forward, the unity of the party, bringing all the leaders together, not only working towards a very successful national convention, but even beyond that, so that we can continue to sustain the goodwill that PDP is enjoying in Nigeria, and send the right signals to Nigerians that we are truly prepared and working together as a family to ensure that, by the grace of God, come 2023, we present a very united force that will rescue Nigeria from the misgovernance of APC. And we also had in our presence and before at our meeting, our candidate from for Anambra elections, where we received briefing from him on how prepared our party is in Anambra, and to confirm to you and to Nigerians that all of us are united in supporting our party in Anambra, and by the grace of God, we shall work assiduously towards winning Anambra elections. And also, we have discussed about the forthcoming convention, and you will hear from NEC tomorrow what the position is going to be by the grace of God.
Well, that's what we're sinking our teeth into next, the politics of the PDP and its internal crisis. And joining us to discuss this is Kasim Afegwa, who is a former spokesperson of the Presidential Campaign Council of the PDP. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I don't know what you've made of what has happened, because we initially saw the resolution of the, it was the PDP Board of Trustees, and it looked like there was peace. Then out of the blues, we saw this court injunction. It was an ex parte order coming out of Rivers State, removing the chairman of the party, even though we saw a counter one coming from Kebbi as well. But before we knew what's happening, the vice chairman, the national vice chairman of the PDP, I think it was a slight tussle, but eventually reason prevailed, and one of them was asked to be in acting position. And nonetheless, it has caused some disquiet within your party, the PDP, and now we're seeing governors move to try and resolve that ahead of all of the politicking that is going on as to if there's going to be a new chairman in the convention, which you'll be having soon. What zone will it be zoned to? The presidential ticket, what area is it going to come from? But what have you made of all of the background to the crisis preceding the meeting of the governors?
Well, thank you very much. What you call crisis, for me, are not as fundamental as they should be. The point is, you remember that I started, this whole fight, as a lone voice. And my intention was to draw the attention of the stakeholders of the party to what I saw as leadership inertia, so that we can play our role as opposition, an integral part of the democratic process, and give Nigerians the alternative viewpoints. Now, the party in the stakeholders in their own wisdom saw sense in what I was saying, so they took up the challenge from there. And we've gotten to a point that the neck of the party at its 193rd meeting last week set October 30th and 31st for the convention. That is the highest decision-making body of the party as an organ. So, and once that date was set, the processes leading to that convention will have to commence, and which they have also started. So what the governors are doing in the meetings they are holding is to try to chart a roadmap. Don't forget that the NEC is, in terms of decision-making, it is a fundamental body because it comprises virtually persons drawn from all parts of the country. And so when they hold their meeting today, they will be able to ratify decisions that have been taken at the National Working Committee level and all that under the acting chairmanship of Elder Akinwumi, so that we can, for once, put this issue to rest, use a legitimate process to oust, the former chairman now, if my reading is right, so that the party can come out stronger, from the ashes of all these internal squabbles.
So, well, you've already traced your own mini history as well, and you're looking forward. You think that something has come out of the agitations which you started. Are you, was this the sort of energy which you wanted to bring up? Because some people say that this has the potential to leave your party divided.
No, it has no potential to divide the party. The party will come out stronger. You see, one individual cannot be stronger than the party, or a few individuals. That's why it's called a party. A party is a fundamental platform that, people use as vehicle to seek for public office. And in the case of PDP, they were in power, national power, for 16 good years. And now that they are in opposition, they should be seen to be playing that opposition role very, very well, so that they will give alternative voice to Nigerians. And what I have seen so far, I'm satisfied with the understanding that is prevailing, because both those who were for pro and anti the former leadership now saw reasons for us to put up a viral opposition. That's what we need at this time. If you have a ruling party that is not living up to expectation, that is, showing some leadership weaknesses, that is showing some level of governmental incompetencies, the opposition should ordinarily cash in on all those loopholes and make sense of the situation, so that they can also gather enough momentum that will propel it to seek for public office with respect to the different aspirants or candidates that want to use the platform to test their popularity at the elections. But when you have a leadership that is taciturn, withdrawn, and you are also not doing well, it means a balance of incompetency. So we don't want that kind of scenario. We want a scenario where the Nigerian populace, that the electorate will see hope in PDP against the hopelessness that the APC presently represents. So that in the final analysis, they will be able, to provide an alternative platform. Because if we resign to fate and say that this is just what we have in the country, and we are not seeing any silver lining in the activities of the opposition, then it becomes a totally hopeless
isn't it
situation.
rather convenient for the PDP to wake up every time it's close to the election year and then say that, oh, we're trying to be a viral opposition, we're trying to, make Nigeria see us as the alternative? I mean, isn't it a little too convenient?
It is not about convenience. It's about the dynamics of politics. You see, the PDP is not just waking up. You see, when you have a
You
leadership,
confirmed yourself that the PDP has been asleep.
No, wait.
And
no,
your
I said-
agitations was to wake the party up, right?
No, I'm coming to that. When I said I started this whole process, it's because at some point I discovered that the leadership was not playing its role well. And what is that role? It's about giving voice to the voiceless, creating platforms where people can engage, converse, and also throw up national discourse.
I guess we're saying the same thing, but using different words.
Yes, what I'm saying is that there's nothing like convenience in terms of what we are doing, because elections are by the corner. No. This leadership came on stream 2017. There were no elections then. But having come 2017, having played a role in 2019, with the outcome and all of that, we're supposed to cash in on all the loopholes that are so evident in the ruling party, the weaknesses, the lack of initiative, creativity, and what have you, to be able to make meaning out of all this. But it's been a disturbing scenario for me as a person to see that as opposition, we're not pushing and we're not hitting hard. Don't forget that I'm coming from a APC background. In 2015, I was part and parcel of the whole process that threw up the leadership. And we knew the kind of opposition we gave to the PDP as a ruling party then, to be able to come on stream. And having come on stream under APC as APC, I saw that the details of what we captured in our manifesto was not being implemented and all that. And I took an exit in 2017. So for me,
it took you 2 years to take an exit.
Yes.
In this instance, it's taken how many years for you to, make the move to wake your party up?
Just about 5-6 months ago, I started all of this.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes, but the party is waking up now. It's waking up.
Well,
and you see the governors meeting, you see the board of trustees members meeting, you see the National Working Committee meeting and structuring our things. So by today, the neck of the party will take decisions that will be far-reaching, for the party to move ahead.
Well, let's quickly flip to Lagos now, where we have another perspective. Chimberlin.
All right, just before that, I just got a question for Mr.
Oh,
Febua.
yes, thanks, James. I just wanted to clear something you said earlier, Mr. Febua. So you referenced the ousting of Mr. Secondus. So I wanted to be sure, are you saying that the party is unanimous on the removal of Prince Uche's Secondus? Are you saying the party has said, well, yes, we're no more working with him as a party, and then we're moving on to the next?
I think your question is has been answered by the concatenations of all the various decisions that have been taken in the last 2-3 weeks. Don't forget that there was a court in an ex parte order, which ousted him, and in the process, an acting chairman came on stream who was the deputy chairman from the south, Akiwami, and he has presided over meetings where legitimate decisions were taken, and to that extent, he will be presiding over today's NEC again. He presided over the last NEC and all of that. So once decisions are taken, it means that we are moving forward. No, but we are not going to be detained by the issue of Prince Uche Secondus, because give or take, the party has an overriding interest to be able to sustain its own relevance within the polity and also to play its role as a virile opposition. And if that's the short term in the narrative or in the trajectory of the party, and the party has not decided to do away with the short term, it's cheery news to some of us, because it's expected that we'll wake up stronger with a new leadership in October to be able to play a stronger role as opposition party in the country.
Let's bring in Honorable Tijani Yusuf, who is a member of the PDP as well as a member of the House of Representatives. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Now, with all of this politicking going on ahead of the convention that is coming up, but what about the challenge of those who may be aggrieved, who feel hard done by? Wouldn't that be disadvantageous to your party in the long run?
Good morning, Chamberlain. Those who feel disenchanted, I think that is why the PDP is unique. If you observe that since the crisis started, there has been slow, steady progression. Each organs of the party are making so that everybody is carried along. As of today, every group, cleavages in the party, has agreed that convention should hold October. So by implication, in spite of the differences of what have you, to come to an agreement on time of convention. So I believe that in as much as you cannot have a political grouping, a gathering, a movement without cleavages and interest. However, the moment you are able to kind of bring together reasonable majority, others within the system struggle to get what they feel is rightly due to them. So I do not feel it will affect the party. If you compare us to the ruling party, you should give us a pass back. I mean, look at the way this crisis started. Look at where we are now. And look at when they started there. Look at where they are now. So you should understand that we are far, 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 far more organized as a party, more in tune with political dynamics and democratic tendencies to present an alternative that is far, far better than what we have now in Nigeria.
All right, just give us a moment. We'll continue this conversation when we return. Don't go away. Welcome back, Honorable Yusuf. What do you think will become of those court cases that members of your party instituted?
I don't think there's much to be scared of. A court in Rivers made a pronouncement, one in Yobe made a pronouncement, and that it is about the national chairman. And I am very, very, very sure that those are part of what was discussed at the governor's meeting several times, even yesterday. So I'm very sure that there won't be anything other than what you have heard or seen before now. At the next meeting today, I'm very sure that we'll come out with resolution that will put to rest any of those things. Nobody, even the national chairman, is not in any way challenging or contesting or anything against the October 30, 31 convention. So I don't see those court cases. It's about those who are for and against the national chairman. That's what the court cases are for. And
are you telling us on good authority that he's going to, whatever case that he's got in the courts, he's going to withdraw them and toe the party line?
I don't think I can say Mr. Secondus has any court case. Some members went to challenge what came out of Rivers, and that's why I don't believe he has any court issue. I don't believe he's in court.
I noticed you used the term national chairman. Mr. Afegbua used former national chairman, and he even went on to say that he will be ousted. I asked him if there's unanimity in some sense in his removal. And he said, well, yes, the answer is there for everyone to see. So you referencing him as a national chairman, so you're saying that essentially he still stays?
As at now, we have the deputy national chairman acting. So it's acting. When you see somebody is acting, it's acting a position. It's not a substantive chairman. So there's a chairman. So if somebody is acting, the moment you have a convention committee in place, the National Working Committee of the party are not as prominent, effective that they should be. The convention committee takes over. And I'm sure that will come out either today. I'm very sure of that. So by implication, the tenure of the President National Working Committee expires in the next maybe 40, 50 days. So it's we are winding down their time. I do not want to go into the substance of who is substantial or not substantial. For now, we have an acting national chairman. To me, if a governor or a president is not available, the vice act. That's what we have presently.
Well, I think it's quite important to clear that air because, I mean, for you in your party, you perhaps understand, you know, the workings, so you understand the season and how things play out. But for the average Nigerian watching who's not into party politics, I mean, they want to get information as clear as possible because eventually they'll make decisions at the poll, and these, you know, happenings will, of course, influence the kind of decisions they make, which is why it's important to say, okay, well, this is the direction, there's unanimity, this is our national chairman. No, he's former national chairman because there's a national acting national chairman and the rest. So I think it's quite important to clear that air. So we know what to use, what term to use, and who to even refer to in those cases. And that's why I'm trying to clear the air. But just to take a step back, I just want to ask you, maybe stepping back a little bit from all this debate, crisis, controversy, whatever term you want to use, is this normal in the PDP to have this kind of rhetorics back and forth because it's a build up to the elections? Is this something you've come to accept as normal?
Every political party, any organization that has human being as a major component and the contestation for position and what have you will always have things like this. Don't forget that political parties is a gathering of different individuals who use that platform to pursue political positions based on the manifesto of the party. So there's nothing new here that does not happen in any other place. Don't forget, look at the Labour Party in UK, the former leader of the Labour Party. After the election, what happened to him and how he became a former leader of the party. There is that the leader of parliament, the party leader in parliament become leader of the party. It was changed. So I don't see this as a peculiar to PDP. It is natural for a political gathering to have interest coming up at every point in time. What is important is the ability of the leadership of the organization to manage these different interests and bring everybody on board in a manner that will be to the common good of all and the general good of the people. So that's my take on that. It's not. And don't forget that this is.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And I'm trying to make you understand that this is not happening a year to election or what have you. Election is 2013. It is happening because there is need to have a change of leadership because you renew your mandate every 4 years. So the tenure of the present NWC ends this year. Ordinarily, if the tenure ends in 2023, you might not have to carry contestation.
Well, let me ask Mr. Fegwa. You know, in politics, I mean, you people always have your interest, as you always say, it's about interest. But is the quest to get the national chairman out, is it a facade to ensure that getting him out and getting the position or where the national chairmanship comes from stays such that you then pave way for perhaps a presidential candidate from the north?
Well, I'm not going to speak, ahead of what the National Executive Committee meeting might decide. But the
Why
quest
you
to,
engaged in the fight?
ease out this present leadership was born out of the fact that, in my own estimation, they weren't pushing harder the way they should do as opposition party. And to that extent, I, raised the alarm ab initio to say, come, if we're actually serious about contesting for power, if we're actually, trying to convince ourselves that we are ready to take up the gauntlet, we need to have a leadership that is punchy, a leadership that understands the dynamics, the issues, and be able to offer, the required voices at every point in time. You see, I was getting bored about reading statements, very long, unwieldy statements all the time. There has to be some kind of citizen action, which the PDP can spearhead. There has to be, a way or a platform, present your platform to Nigerians, coordinate with civil society groups and all of that, and speak to issues that affect the country. But this present leadership wasn't doing that. And so for me, I wanted to see a new leadership that will understand the dynamics of what we presently suffer as a country, insecurity.
All right, let me ask you, let me put it this way then.
Governance,
let me put it this way.
Governance and what have you.
Does it matter to you where the position of the presidential candidates of the PDP is zoned to?
Well, there's a zoning committee which is being put in place.
Yeah, we know all that. Now, I'm asking, does it matter to you? To you as Mr. Afegba?
Sorry?
Does it matter to you as Mr. Afegba where the presidential candidate is zoned to?
Well, my view might just be a lone voice, but if you ask me, my honest view would be that the presidential candidate should come from the South for PDP. But if the overriding interest of the party speaks otherwise, that's to them. But in my own estimation as a Nigerian, as a voter, as a member of the party, I'll prefer to have a southern presidential candidate, because after the monstrosity of this present APC-led leadership, after the misgovernance, after the suffering and untold, I would want to have a stronger candidate from the south that can balance the equation of the present nepotistic government. Okay,
so it's okay. Let me bring in Honorable Yusuf on this one. But Honorable Yusuf, at the moment, some of the information circulating out there is for those who are angling to get the nod to become the party chairman. At the time, they said that there was Mr. Secondus and General Oyinlola. So, and who knows that there wasn't any opposition from the Northern Bloc about all of these things. And if that were the case, it then means that probably you just may have a Southern national chairman. And if that happens, then you will have the position of the presidency zoned to the north, which is not what Mr. Afegba wants to see. What do you think?
In politics, 2 + 2 is not always 4. Every interest group is struggling to make sure they place themselves in an advantageous position. So I know that definitely there will be attempt by groups to say, let's put the national chairman here so as to give us advantage for this. But I'm sure when the zoning committee take what starts its work, we'll begin to see how it is moved. But sincerely, I do not see any way it is written that both cannot come from the same place and after election, you rejig it. But for the sake of having some sense of equity and balance, that is why you have, when chairman is here, president can come from this side or what have you. But I still have a conviction that we can if we are able to put to Nigerians a very good candidate, a candidate that Nigerians can feel that is pulse, that they can have conviction that this is somebody that will really take us out to do job and rearrange and restore some level of confidence in governance. the issue of where chairman comes from might not have much impact. But if we are not able to kind of come up with somebody as presidential candidate that will be seen by Nigerians, convinced by Nigerians that is somebody who understands where we are now and what needs to be done to take us out of where we are, then those dynamics would come to play in this election.
Does that then mean that you don't subscribe to the school of thought that think that the presidency should be zoned to maybe the Middle Belt or the North Central? You don't buy that?
I'm from the Middle Belt, so it is natural that I want my zone to have such a privilege. However, the capacity, the competence, whoever is going to be is very important to me. It's so unfortunate that politics in Nigeria has been reduced to where you are from, your religion, and what have you. The fact that we are here now does not mean that is their ability. We must deliberately put on the forefront to Nigerians and everybody to understand that the character, the competence of the person that sits on that seat matters a lot. On a more serious note, if you have a president today who is destabilized, who knows his onions and what have you, who will begin to cascade and slow down on where he comes from. It is because of this barrage of incompetence that has been displayed, nepotism that is being thrown to our face, that people are very interested on where a president does come from. So in as much as, yes, it is one of those very, very germane discussion right now, but I think for a nation where we are now, the character, the content of the person matters a lot.
So what I hear is you saying that competency, character is way more important than ethnicity or the region a person comes from, especially for the role of, for the position of presidential candidate for your party. So would you then be suggesting that your party remove the clause that has to do with zoning from its constitution, because the PDP actually institutionalized what we now come to know as zoning? Are you saying that maybe that shouldn't have been the path to toe for the party?
No, I never said that. Why we call zoning? Zoning is balancing of power. Once the president emerged, you now begin to zone other positions in a manner that there will be a sense of equity, that every segment of the society will feel carried along. Zoning does not mean that you undermine competence, and you cannot start zoning until, like somebody was even talking to me many days ago, that you're talking about speakership. I said, no, until you have presidential candidate, you win election, you cannot complete zoning. You cannot zone what you do not know how. I mean, you can't zone in future. Until you do the actual election, you cannot do zoning. So zoning is to help you balance the power game. A nation with about 250 ethnic blocks, you must zone to help give a sense of oneness, sense of equity, sense of being carried along to every segment of society. So zoning does not mean that you jettison merit. It just means that after the president is also so place, it's natural. You take the Senate president elsewhere, you take the speaker elsewhere, you take so elsewhere. So every part of the country have a sense of belonging.
Doesn't that then suggest that the PDP governors who met and said that the presidential candidate should come from the South, are you saying that they didn't figure it all out before they made that comment?
They figured very, very well. I told you earlier that it is natural for every block. North Central say we want it. South say we want it. Northwest, North say we want it. It is natural. Nobody serve you power like a dollar card on the table. You must agitate, struggle. Power does not come by wishing. Power comes by you making deliberate effort to seek power. So what the governors did is right, very, very right. It's in right taste. They're doing the right thing because they feel that that is the way to get power to the South. And I agree with them.
Well, I know you're going to say you're optimistic about this if I put in the next question, but we have to thank you very much indeed, Honorable Tajuddin Yusuf, member of the PDP and a member of the House of Reps, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. You're welcome.
Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Chamberlain. I know that you seem to be very optimistic and upbeat about the NEC meeting, which is going to hold your party today. However, what fundamental changes do you think that Nigerians can look forward to in terms of how the affairs of your party was conducted before now and going forward?
Well, I want to see, a renewed vigor in the way and manner we do party business. I want to see accountability. I want to see openness. I want to see transparency in the management of, the party at all levels. Because when you give equity, when you give justice to people, when you are able to balance all the issues, with fair play, then you are likely going to have more and more people coming to participate in your party.
What is renewed vigor? What would that translate to?
I want to see a more active PDP after this whole.
Active in what sense? Is it just in terms of criticism? Is
not
it
just about criticism.
Yes.
Coming up with first alternative viewpoint, telling us policy for policy what you would do different if you have opportunity to preside over the country, coming up with blueprints on how to solve insecurity, how to relaunch the country on the economic superhighway that will assuage the feelings of the people, that will also douse the tension in the country.
Do you think that they should also wade into this VAT controversy? I mean, this is a matter of
Of course,
government.
these are issues of economy. It is very important. The party must make its position known at all times on some of those sensitive issues. And let me quickly take you back on this issue of zoning that Chamberlain asked earlier. You see, within the party, within the PDP, there are people who say that for the 16 years that PDP governed the country, that better part of those years were served by Southerners. President Jonathan 5 years, Obasanjo 8 years, making 13 years. Now, they say if you want to, come to equity, you must come with clean hands. So those persons are saying that because the South have served 13 years out of the 16 years that PDP was in power, that it's only natural for you to cede the presidential candidate to the North, so that if they are able to get elected, then they also serve 8 years to balance the equation, kind of. And so that also seemed to be, gaining traction within the party. Because if you look at it as we speak, only Northern aspirants have approached me as an individual that they want to run for presidency. I have not seen a Southern aspirant from the PDP that has approached me. That is also like conceding to the,
But your personal preference will be for a Southerner to be there.
Yes, that's my personal preference. But if your personal preference is just going to be a lone voice, I won't have any option than to follow what the party decides.
Why do you think Southerners seem to be shying away from it, in your opinion, or maybe you just haven't heard them?
No, it's possible. It's also possible that they are buying into that narrative of saying that the South dominated leadership when PDP had sway, and the North should be given opportunity to measure up. That some people see that as a fair play, and it's okay if that comes. What matters, just like Tijani Yusuf said, is ability, competence, and and the content of the individual who will be coming on board.
Are those some of the outcomes you're expecting today from NEC?
Well, the meeting today, I didn't see it, but from what the governor spoke, I'm seeing a meeting that will talk about the convention of 30th and 31st. I'm seeing a NEC meeting that will take decisions on issue of zoning, or perhaps set up a committee that will superintend that. Don't forget that Senator David Mark is chairing one committee that has to do with reconciling all the interests that are presently at war, so to speak. So he might be giving reports to the NEC. If he has succeeded in achieving results, he will be given. But if he needed more time, he will also be considered. And also the party will also come up with persons who will manage the convention. There has to be a committee that will manage the convention. They will set up several subcommittees and what have you, and people there with members of the party, so that the preparation for the October 30 and 31 can take off in earnest.
So those are the expectations we have today, or you have today, of the next meeting which you hold in your party. Well, we'll definitely keep tabs on it for you, but we have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Today this morning. Kasima Febwa is a former spokesperson of the Presidential Campaign Council of the PDP. Well, we'll take a break at this point and we'll be back shortly to take your mails. Please stay with us.
All right, let's take a look at some of your mails. This one comes through from Adil. He's talking about the 5G network. He thinks that, let us call it a spade a spade. Network providers are not trying at all in Nigeria. I have 3 options for internet service. None of them is dependable. In the course of a 30-minute interview with the World Bank, I got disconnected 4 times. You can imagine how frustrating that can be. Service providers need to know that some people are willing to pay any price to have dependable internet.
I feel you, Adiolu. I really feel you. Henry's mail is next, and this one is on the health sector, saying Nigerian authorities can only struggle to explain the chronic severe underfunding of the health sector. Globally, general government expenditure on health, that's GGHE, expressed as a percentage of total expenditure on health and total government expenditure per capita, are critical statistics used to benchmark measures of commitment by government to fund health in any nation. What are Nigeria's figures given our low purchasing power parity? The cake is not big enough to quench the hunger, so let government implement the averred innovative proposals to expand the funding basket and its contents.
Well, Chike Philip says, I believe the Nigerian medical sector needs a complete overhaul, but Johesu constantly fighting NMA and NAD will not promote the interest of the sector. This will allow the workers' play into the hands of government.
And then you see Dr. Ikmanosa says the health sector needs root and branch reform. Government should enable legal, institutional, and cultural transformation within the sector to improve healthcare delivery. All right, so you see a couple of things just.
So see your mails, your mail rather.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. This one is from Demola Alaladi, talking about party politics. He says, I'm not surprised the PDP members are talking the way they are, because the way politics is being played in the country now, it's all about self-interest. This is not peculiar to PDP alone, but cuts across all political divide. It's a shame that the PDP has not been able to run as a formidable opposition party to checkmate the activities of the ruling party, and that is why majority of the political parties in the country are in crisis all the time. If they focus on their interest more on the country, or if they focus their interest more on the country, then things will get better for everyone. I don't think we can fault that, can we?
Well, you know, some of these things, I mean, the last point that Mr. Febio was making there, I was talking about what certain persons in the party think, but they also need to remember that whatever arrangements they have within the political party, which they have the right to do if they all agree to it, is that they will ultimately be presenting whichever candidate to the people of Nigeria. So, and the people of Nigeria will look at it from a broader context. So, if you're referencing what has happened on the national level, as impacts your state, you can reference it on one hand and then turn around and do something else differently. So that ultimately is how it will be. And that's the point we're trying to make when we say, look, if parties don't get the internal democracy right, I think Nigerians should be able to just have a say at the end of the day. And it may be encouraging to also know that a lot of people are coming through with the continuous voter registration.
And add to that the conversation, which has been on for about a week now. The PDP is APC. You may have caught that, and I think that's also something that needs to be factored in. I mean, the general perspective of Nigerians thinking, I mean, what's the difference? And a lot of people are saying, how about a third force? I know that's a term that we heard 2 years ago. Is that going to be a thing this time around? Big question.
I didn't hear VPN anywhere. But let's leave it at that conversation. Thank you for keeping your mails coming in. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
I'm Kaido Kikulu.
I'm Chamberlain, so have a good one.